Hi, my name is Erica Durinsky, and I'm the owner and shepherdess of Burroughs Farm located in Connecticut. My husband and I operate a small animal farm where we raise mostly sheep that we use for meat and for fiber products. And one of the byproducts of our farm is that we make a cold processed soap using our sheep's milk. So today I'm really excited to share that process with you. But we're going to go back to a little bit more of a soap making 101, and we're going to do a melt and pour soap making for you guys today, so that you can learn the beginning process of how to make your own soap. But before we start that, let me share with you a little bit about the history of soap making. There were tablets found dating back to 2200 BC from ancient Mesopotamia, where we know that the individuals there were using tree ash and different fats to make a soap-like product. Ancient Egyptians in the 1500 BC period were also known to make a soap-like product using different oils. Fast forward to the 17th century, we saw the emergence of using fats like whale blubber or tallow, which is beef fat, or lard, which is from pigs. But more or less for about 3,000 years, soap making remained pretty much the same until we get to the 1960s. And in the 1960s, we had a shortage of oils. So in Germany, they created the first synthetic soap product. So using petroleum-based products, and this is a lot of what we see today in laundry detergents, shampoos, and other commercial cleaning products that we purchase. So today, what I've seen personally is that there's this interest and this resurgence in having homemade soaps, because we're more interested in knowing what we're putting in our body and what we're putting on our body. A lot of that is health consciousness. Some of that is, I think, honestly, COVID related, where people were doing more homesteading and became more interested in relearning these skills. So I'm here today and very excited to teach you all about how you can very simply make your own soap products. So I mentioned at our farm that we make cold process soap, and cold process soap involves utilizing oils, things that you find in your household: sunflower oil, olive oil, coconut oil, maybe palm oil, depending on the soap recipe, and lye. And what lye is a very, very concentrated salt. The problem with lye is that it's a little bit dangerous to work with. You have to be careful because you can get chemical burns on your skin. It heats up to very high temperatures, but not to worry. We're gonna do a very simple melt and pour soap making. So you guys got this awesome kit, and in your kit, you have glycerin soap, so this nice clear block of soap. You have melt and pour goat's milk soap, which is this really beautiful creamy white soap. You got some beautiful scents. You got a lavender and a sandalwood scent, which are both gorgeous, very popular. You got some fun little items to add into your soap. This is my favorite, the little dinosaur. He's adorable. Not sure what this guy is. Maybe a brontosaurus. No, not a brontosaurus. Stegosaurus. I'm not sure. I had a pterodactyl in my last kit, but anyway, very cool, fun stuff. You guys also got some nice little stones that you can put in there. You also got a silicone soap mold. So today you're going to be able to make 6 different soaps. I'm going to show you a couple of different methods. You can see here that I actually started one of the soaps, and it's because we're going to layer it. But I wanted to get that going so you don't have to sit and wait for it to set and listen to me drone on for 10 extra minutes. So we will get back to this though. So I can show you a couple of things that you might be able to create today. We're gonna do this layered soap. So you can see that there's this cool layer of the goat's milk soap and the glycerin soap on top, and I put some of these fun little stones in here, but there is no way that you can do this wrong. Soap making is up to your imagination, and there's a million different ways that you can add scents and little findings and objects, and you can layer it. You can use different soap bases. You can use colorants. You can use things found in your house. It's totally up to your imagination. So I'm going to give you some suggestions, but I want you to think outside of the box too and do some really cool stuff today. So I'm going to go outside of the order that we did it earlier today because, like I said, I want you guys to be able to do this without having to wait for me. So a couple of the things that we asked you to have on hand for this class are a cutting board. I recommend not using a wooden cutting board because if you get the soap in it, soap is self-cleaning, but sometimes it leaves a little bit of the scent in it, or heaven forbid you go to chop up vegetables later and it's soapy. That would just be gross. So I just use a plastic cutting board, a nice sharp knife. If the soap is hard for you to cut, feel free to run this under warm water. I don't think that you'll need to. And then, excuse me while I step off camera, last but not least, you'll want a vessel that you can heat up the melt and pour soap. So something that is microwave safe, that we're going to avoid making the soap too hot, but just in case you do, that has a handle, and you may want a pot holder. So just be very, very cautious when using the microwave. We're gonna do this low and slow, but sometimes it gets away from you. So we have this. So the first thing that I'm gonna ask you guys to do is to take your soap blocks. I'd cut them in half to start. There's more soap than you need to make the 6 bars, but for all intents and purposes for this lesson, we're gonna do the 6 bars. So if you can take half of your, so the larger, cut this in half, cut the glycerin in half, and then I'm gonna have you guys keep them separate, but cut them up into little, like 1 by 1 inch pieces. There's no real science to this, but when we're melting it down, these small pieces melt pretty quickly, they melt pretty evenly, so this is a nice way to do it. If you're watching this at home, you're gonna wanna pause the video while you're cutting up the cubes. Okay, but for this video, what I'm gonna have you do is once your little cubes are cut up, I'm gonna have you take some of these white goat's milk cubes and I'm gonna have you put about 10 of them into your measuring cup, okay? Just gonna have a little bit of water in there. So I'm gonna put 10 of these in my cup. And we're gonna put these in the microwave. Now, again, I want this to go really low and slow because we never want our soap to get too hot. We certainly don't want it to boil. You're gonna put it in for 10 seconds to start. And when we take it out, we're gonna stir it up. And there's gonna be little chunks in there that are gonna melt in a little bit more. And after that 10-second first go around in the microwave, then we're gonna do it for 5 seconds each time because it heats up really, really quickly and we don't wanna make the soap too hot or boil. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna throw this in the microwave. So as I said, what I've already done is I've started the process by putting my first layer, because this is gonna be a multi-layer, like I showed you, a multi-layer soap. Once you put this layer in, you're gonna let it sit for about 10 minutes before you can add another layer to the top. And the reason is that if it's too wet, it's just gonna mix together. So I'm gonna show you one of my, I call it a flop. So this was meant to be a layered soap. And what happened was I put the goat's milk in the bottom, didn't quite wait long enough. I was in a rush. I melted the glycerin soap and I poured it on top and it was too hot and it just all melted together. So still pretty. I put the little flower in here that you guys have in your kit, but not quite the end product that I wanted. So here I am, I've got my soap. It's starting to melt. You can see that there's some chunks in there. So I'm just gonna stir that in. Some of it's gonna break down. It's probably gonna need another few seconds in the microwave. So this is after 10 seconds, so you can see. So if yours looks like this, that's totally normal. I'm gonna put it back in for 5 more seconds. And there you go, a nice smooth liquid, and that looks just perfect. Once you have your soap into this nice liquid form, you should be able to touch this. It shouldn't be so hot that you can't touch it, and that's just kind of the right temperature that you want it to be. So from here, you were given these 2 beautiful scents in your kits. Like I said, you have sandalwood and you have lavender. I like to add probably about 1/4 teaspoon, and the reason for that is that I want you to add the scent to it, stir it in, and smell it. And if you like it, that's great. But you can always add more. You can't take it back. Okay, so I'm just gonna add a little bit here. I'm gonna go with the sandalwood. The sandalwood really smells lovely. It's a nice kind of woodsy, earthy scent. and I'm gonna stir it in. At any point, if your soap starts to thicken back up, which we're not having that problem here, but if it does, put it back in the microwave for 5 seconds at a time. No problem. And from here, what we're gonna do, before I have you do this, I'm gonna have you notice that my silicone mold is sitting on another tray. And the reason for that is because this is super floppy. So if for some reason you wanna pick this up, you wanna move it, it can change the shape of your soap if it's not set. So I like to put it on a solid surface, a cookie tray, a cutting board, piece of cardboard, anything like that. So I'm gonna take my goat's milk, melt and pour, and I'm gonna pour it into the bottom of this mold, okay? So if you're at home, like I said, give it about 10 minutes to set. You can accelerate the process. I live in Connecticut. It is very cold here today. You can put it outside. It probably cuts the time down to about 4 or 5 minutes. If you have something solid underneath it and you can pick it up and move it to the refrigerator, you can put it in the fridge for 4 or 5 minutes. But after it's set for the 10 minutes, this is where you can start to do things like add the little stones. You can sit it on top. So remember, I have my mold here that I've already filled prior to us starting. So it's been sitting here for definitely more than 10 minutes. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take some of these little stones that you guys got and I'm gonna sprinkle them on top. So this is a little bit of a pro tip that I'm gonna give you guys here. If you're unsure if it's solid enough that you can start to layer, blow on it gently. Now I can see the soap that I just poured, it's gonna ripple a little bit on the top. But the soap that I poured more than 10 minutes ago, the top isn't moving. That's called a skin. It forms a nice protective barrier. So I'm putting my little stones on there. You can feel free to put whatever you want in there. You can put your little dinosaur. You can put something that you found in your house. You can put shells. You can put rocks. You can put cinnamon sticks, you can put lavender, you can put dried flowers, whatever it is that, that you find to be beautiful, and you can put it in your soap. Okay, so I'm just gonna step off camera here very briefly, and I'm gonna rinse out my cup, because what I don't wanna do now is add my glycerin blocks to this, because then it's just kind of gonna get murky. So I'm just gonna step off briefly and I'm gonna rinse this out. Okay, so now, and remember, you don't want to rush this because you just poured your layer, but once your layer is set, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put about 10 of these glycerin blocks, and I'm going to put them in the microwave for 10 seconds to start. One of the things that you can do when you're making your soap, and this certainly isn't required, but another pro tip is you can spray a little bit of rubbing alcohol on your layers of soap, and what that does is it gets rid of any bubbles that might be forming in there. So this is just regular isopropyl rubbing alcohol that I bought at the local pharmacy. So nothing fancy, just a little squirt bottle. Okay, so let's see here. I've got my glycerin. That was more than 10 seconds. Don't do what I just did. I put it on for too long by accident. So I'm just gonna let that cool for a second. But in the meantime, I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna add a little bit more scent. You don't have to put the scent, the same scent on each layer. You don't have to put scent at all if you don't want to. If you want to do something more natural, you can use something from your home. You can add honey, you can add oatmeal, you could add cinnamon, you could add turmeric. That makes for a nice, beautiful orange colored soap. Green matcha tea makes for a beautiful, beautiful green colored soap. You can also buy different color products. They sell, they call them color blocks. They look just like these, and you shave them down and you mix them in. You can buy mica, or you can use more natural products. I do not recommend using food coloring because your skin will turn whatever color that you make the soap. So do not recommend. Okay, so this still needs another minute just to cool down. It's still just a little bit warm to the touch. One of the things to be aware of when you make your soap is that glycerin has a natural tendency to sweat. So the oils in the glycerin soap come out totally normal. But when your soaps are done, it's a good way to store them is to put them in an airtight package, a Ziploc bag, to put them in some sort of like a Rubbermaid container. If you're giving them as gifts, it's so, there's so many beautiful ways to wrap ribbons around them, put little pieces of floral on them. You can put them in a box, you can put them in a little baggie. They make wonderful, wonderful gifts. This soap will last approximately 2 years. You don't need to worry about it going bad. The only time that you need to be concerned about it is when you start to put things in that are natural, like if you put in pumpkin puree or you put in another food-like product. You should just be aware that you're going to want to, just make sure that it isn't spoiled before the 2-year period. Okay, so I feel like I've cooled down enough. And what I'm gonna do here is go to my initial layer here. I put these sweet little rocks in here, and I'm just gonna very, very gently pour this over the top, making the really cool layered effect. I like to go all the way up to the edge of the mold. You don't need to, it'll still be beautiful either way, but I like to bring it all the way up to the top just because I think it makes a really nice finished product. Okay, cool. So from here, feel free to just keep playing. You have all of these awesome supplies. Feel free to think outside of the box, to use items from your kitchen. The folks in the last group added some honey. They asked how much honey. Sometimes items with sugar like honey or vanilla extract can discolor your soap, meaning that this really beautiful white soap can end up being like a tan or brownish color. If you don't mind, that's fine. I try not to do that because when I make my soaps, I like to add color into them, and sometimes it doesn't make a true color like I'm trying to. You can add oatmeal. I like to take oats and I grind them down. You can add them into the soap so it makes like a nice exfoliant. You can add a little piece of loofah into your soap. You can add coffee grounds as an exfoliant. I mean, the world is it's really your oyster here. You can make whatever you think is cool. So for those of you who want to go on and continue to do this, we talked about how cool it can be doing these things with your kiddos. Again, just don't let the soap get too hot, the melt and pour soap get too hot. But you can do really sweet little craft activities with your kids. I had a pterodactyl, I think this guy is, if you can see him, and I added him to my melt and pour soap. So really cool. You can add the glycerin soap into a little sandwich baggie, melt it halfway, let it set, and then you can take like really cool little fish or aquarium animals and put them in there. You fill it up the rest of the way and it looks like a little fish tank. Someone suggested that it's a great way to get your kid who doesn't want to bathe to actually use soaps. All kinds of cool stuff we learned today from your coworkers. If you want to buy these products, you can certainly buy them. Most craft stores carry this type of stuff. Michael's carries this stuff. I prefer to use a couple of companies that have more all-natural products, and I really know that I'm getting a nice quality product. One of them is called Brambleberry. And the cool thing about Brambleberry is that they have a sister website called Soap Queen. I feel like she stole my thunder, but she does all kinds of really fantastic videos about how to make soap and has different crafting ideas, and they sell the kits. So really cool stuff that you can go on and continue to do yourself. The other website is called Bulk Apothecary. And then of course, Amazon, you can buy anything on Amazon. So you can also buy these products on Amazon. I hope that I've answered all of your questions and that you're able to go on and make these really cool soaps for yourself. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Garden Street and I can answer those questions for you. Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this exciting event for you guys. And I really appreciate being part of this. Take care.